What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 5th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. Tonight, we have a huge 12-game slate. It's obviously early April. There's probably going to be a lot that changes between now and lock. As is, we have some injury news that we're waiting on, but it's actually been kind of quiet so far. Still wouldn't be surprising if some unexpected stuff happens. So, as always, be sure to tune into the deeper dive and live before lock on the Awesemo YouTube channel. But for now, we're going to take a look at 5 of the top tournament options on FanDuel using the Boom Bust tool on the Awesemo.com website. Coming in at number 5, Kristaps Porzingis is $9,100, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Porzingis is projected for about 8% ownership with a 9% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He has power forward and center eligibility. There's plenty of risk in his playing time here. Washington has been eliminated from the postseason. There's no reason for them to push Porzingis. Washington is also 12-point underdogs at Minnesota. But if we get 29 to 30 minutes from Porzingis, which is certainly reasonable, assuming that this game is relatively competitive down the wire, he's averaged around 1.4 fantasy points per minute this season, gets a pace-up spot against Minnesota. He gets a ton of opportunities in this Washington offense, especially without Kyle Kuzma, and just isn't getting much ownership despite a very high ceiling. Number 4, Devon Vasel, $5,300 price tag, 9% projected ownership, 11% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's only a shooting guard on FanDuel, so that does limit his utility a little bit, but he's playing once again without DeJounte Murray. Not an ideal matchup against Denver, but still a 113 implied total for the Spurs. And this is a game that San Antonio still would like to win. You know, they're the 10 seed in the West right now. They have a 2-game lead on the Lakers, mostly because the Lakers just cannot get out of their own way and cannot win a game. But they haven't clinched that 10 seed. So San Antonio needs to win this game. And DeJounte Murray being out just opens up production. Vassell has averaged between 0.9 and 1 fantasy points per minute without DeJounte Murray or Derek White on the floor this season. He's likely to give you 30 to 32 minutes tonight against Denver. Number 3, Rui Hachimura, $4,500 price tag, projected for 10% ownership with an 11% chance of being in the optimal lineup tonight against the Timberwolves. Already mentioned that pace-up matchup and, the fact that there is some blowout risk. But if Washington's able to hang in the game, you're probably getting 28 minutes or so from Hachimura. He has small forward and power forward eligibility on FanDuel, so that's nice as well. And it's just a little bit underpriced and under-owned the way things look right now. Number 2, Darius Garland, $9,200 in a favorable matchup against Orlando. Garland is projected for 11% ownership with a 12% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He has point guard and shooting guard eligibility, which makes it a little bit easier to get him into lineups than it would be if he were only a point guard. Caris LeVert being in the starting lineup for Orlando does cut into LeVert's production a bit, but Cleveland is also staggering their minutes. So for whatever minutes LeVert is not on the floor, which is likely to be around 12 to 14 minutes, Garland is likely to be out there just running the show and doing everything offensively. He's also capable of playing 40 minutes if this game's competitive. The Cavs are 9-point road favorites. Orlando is already shorthanded and could be even more shorthanded by the time this game starts. So there's certainly the potential that this game gets out of hand. But if it's competitive, you're probably looking at 40 minutes or so from Darius Garland, who averages well over a fantasy point per minute and is in a great matchup. And number 1, Jaron Jackson Jr., only $5,900. Projected for 4% ownership right now with a 12% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He has power forward and center eligibility. Jackson has a difficult matchup against Utah, so I understand why he's not pulling a whole lot of ownership on a slate of this size. But that being said, you have no Ja Morant. Dylan Brooks is doubtful, so the offense is probably going to run through Jackson even more than it normally does. You should see a nice spike in usage for Desmond Bane and for Jaron Jackson. If Jackson gets hot, he certainly could get on the floor for a few more minutes, assuming that he's able to avoid foul trouble. Just not getting quite as much ownership as he should, despite a tough matchup against Utah. So to recap, the top 5 options on FanDuel as things currently stand: number 5, Kristaps Porzingis; number 4, Devon Vasel; number 3, Rui Hachimura; number 2, Darius Garland; and number 1, Jaron Jackson Jr.